Crafty friends, thanks for joining me today for my Slimline card video collab with Courtney for her 25 days of Christmas collabs. I'll have her video link in my description below so you can check out her video. For today's card, our theme is a slimline card, which is a very popular trend that's still going strong. I'll be using 3 sets from Trinity stamps along with the die. I'll be using the Bunny Burrow, Winter Burrow, and the New Place Like Home, along with the Slimline Scenic border dies. I already stamped out a template for my scene, and this usually helps me when I want to create a 1-layer card. Of course, if you're not a fan of 1-layer cards, you can stamp, color, and use coordinating dies to create your scene, but I tend to really enjoy doing 1-layer scenes, and this is what I'm doing here today. So I also have all the masks cut out for my images, and using the template, I'll be placing my mask in reverse order of the stamping. So whatever mask I'm putting down first will be the items that I will be stamping out last, and the items that will be put down last are the items that you'll be stamping at the very beginning. And the trees are the exception because I knew I wanted to move them around away from the template a little bit. I wanted them a little bit more staggered, and I wanted to add 5 of them instead of 4. So I do kind of break my rule here, but I do focus on the smaller items because I did want to put a little Santa hat on the hedgehog. I wanted to put the scarf on the hedgehog, and I deviated a little bit from it, but the idea is still the same. I'm going to be placing them behind the snowman and making sure that I'm placing them properly so I don't mess up my stamping when I bring it to my Misti to do my final stamping and my final scene. I think that this really helps. Sometimes I do just a template with masking alone, and sometimes I will actually stamp out an idea, and of course you are free to change your mind even if you have a stamped out template, and you can change it as you see fit. Sometimes once you put everything down, it doesn't look right, and so you'll want to change it. So that's what I did today. For my card panel itself, it's actually going to be 8¼ by 3¼ which is a little smaller than my normal slimline card size, which is 8½ by 3½, and I only did that because we are creating a frameless shaker card today, and the additional acetate around the card panel will make it just a little bit larger, and I wanted to stick with the normal slimline size I use. Using my Misti, I put my template and my final card panel into the Misti, and I'm going to be using the stamp images and placing them, and whatever is masked first is the images that I'm going to be placing. So once I stamp that out, I'll be removing the mask from my template and moving it onto my final card panel. And you want to make sure you do this so you don't stamp over these images. So you want to make sure that you have the mask on. I tend to use Eclipse masking paper because it is a large roll versus Post-it paper. And the only difference is that the Eclipse masking paper is white. So sometimes you don't realize that you don't have the mask on. So if you're a beginner with masking, go ahead and use Post-it paper because it's colorful and you can see where all the masks are until you get the hang of it. So I'm going to speed through most of this, and I'm going to show you this for a second time just to show you the second round of stamping. I'm going to be doing the same thing. I'm using my template and picking out the items that I still have masks for, and those are the items that are in the very front. So I'm going to use that in the Misti, pull up my stamped images, and go ahead and stamp. So those images already on the card panel have been masked off, so you don't have to worry about them being stamped over. You want to remove the mask from the template and to move it to your final card and repeat the steps. Once you have everything stamped out, you have a card panel to work with. I'm going to be using the Trinity Stamp Slimline Scenic border die and Eclipse masking paper to cut out some masks so I can create some snowbanks. I'll be using the positive and negative pieces of the die cuts, and this will help me add some ink blending to the snowbank. For a lot of my 1-layer cards, I tend to do some ink blending for the background just because I don't have to use my Copic markers. It covers up a ton of space very quickly, and the blend is always really nice. I struggle to blend out with large space for Copic coloring, so I tend not to do that. Plus, it uses up a lot of ink, and I just don't like that. I've had these mini distress inks for the longest time, and I haven't even refilled them, and they still work very well. For snowbanks, I tend to use shaded lilac or broken china, and those colors work really well. I just put a light color of it just to add that contrast. And although it does look really dark right now, once we add a sky in, it'll lighten up, but it provides that dimension for the snowbank. So I wanted to add an additional snowbank right near the trees, and that's what I did. For the snowbank masking, the stitched die that I use has stitching on it, and I didn't want the colors for the sky to transfer into it, so I added a bit of washi tape just to cover up those stitched areas, if you were wondering why I was putting washi tape on my masking paper. For my skies, I tend to like a lot of color, so I go in with a variety of colors as a base for my background. And then I'll go in with chipped sapphire and black soot to darken everything up. So you can keep ink blending and adding color until it gets to a point where you're happy. And I really like the variety of that sky. It's not that noticeable once you color everything up, but I really like doing that for my sky. Of course, you can go with solid colors if you wanted to, dark blues and blacks, and that would be a perfect sky as well. This is just my preference. So once I'm done, I remove all the mask, and it's so fun to see. I do skip through all the coloring. This video is meant to focus on the frameless shaker part. For the sentiment, I'm using the No Place Like Home sentiment, and I'm going to be heat embossing it on my card panel on the left-hand side. And this is where the template helps, because this is such a large sentiment that leaving that space there and knowing exactly where I'll be stamping it is super helpful. So I use my gold embossing powder because I thought it would stand out nicely against the dark sky as well as the snowbank, and I went ahead and heat set that. So I really liked that sentiment. It was perfect because we have this little home for these cute little critters. I also wanted to add snowfall, so I'm using a Uniball Signo white gel pen and adding little snow flurries everywhere. I am very careful because this pen is very wet, so you don't want to transfer it to your hand and then transfer it to the card base. I will also be using it in conjunction with the Posca Paint Pen, which is a larger bullet tip. I think that this is the 0.7, and it adds additional variation of sizes for the snow flurries, and I really like how it kind of has that difference between the very small snow flurries and the very big snow flurries. So I'm putting it all over my scene, and that will just make it wintry. I'll be using glitter for my shaker bits, and I think that it really goes well together. For my frameless shaker part, I'm using a very sturdy acetate from Crafter's Companion, and it's my favorite acetate to use for these type of cards because I want it to be sturdy. I'm using my Fiskars paper trimmer to add score lines to the bottom piece of the acetate and then the right hand side. And I'm just doing that first because I want to make sure that I am creating a very strong pocket for my card. So the idea of a frameless shaker card is that you don't need to use foam and you don't need to use a frame. So you'll just be placing it into this acetate pocket and closing it up using double-sided tape. So because this acetate is really sturdy, it's a little bit harder to fold. So you definitely want to use a Teflon bone folder to reinforce the edges. And I do snip off the little corner square of the acetate so it's easier to just tape down. And then I will also go ahead and score the line for the right hand side of the card, or the top part of the card, and that will create the pocket. I thought that this was the smartest way to do it because I will only have the left hand side to close up once I add my glitter. I'm going to go ahead and reinforce all my edges using the Teflon bone folder as close to the card panel as possible. And this way the glitter will stay on the front of the card instead of trying to move behind. But you will have double-sided tape there anyway, so it shouldn't affect it. So once I add that additional line there, I will snip off the square at the very bottom of the acetate, just because it does make it a lot easier to fold and tape the acetate directly to the card panel. So using very strong double-sided adhesive, I'm adding the tape on the acetate and gluing it directly onto the card panel. And you want to make sure that you have your glue very close to the edge of the card, because you don't want that glitter moving underneath and moving to the back of your card. So I do this for all three sides, and this creates that pocket for the shaker bits that you want to use. My go-to Christmas shaker bits is this glitter bottle that I have that I got from Hobby Lobby. It's lasted me years. I'm only halfway through, and I'll be using that. It just works really well because it's kind of white and holographic and perfect for Christmas cards. So I am going to go ahead and create that score line for my last flap before I add the glitter, because as you know, glitter gets everywhere and you don't want to be moving around your card panel after you add the glitter and dealing with glitter flying everywhere. So again, I'm going to cut out that little square where the folds meet and then add the glitter bits. And for this particular card, because it is a landscape card, I wanted not that much glitter bits because it'll just be the snow at the bottom, and you know, you can shake your card and it looks like snowfall's falling, but I didn't want to cover up the hedgehogs at the bottom of the card. So that's it for today's Slimline Frameless Shaker card. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to check out Courtney's video. I'll have her link down in the description box. Thanks for stopping by, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.